The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, over here, it's Brandon.
And the Brandon Peters Show is back and ready to attack. Today features a discussion of the 2021 film Moxie. Joining me today, I'm very excited to welcome my friend, director, writer, actor, comedian, a jack of all the trades, David Kronmiller.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Always good to... I think like during these COVID times, we've kept in touch really well. I don't know.
We have. Even though you moved far away from here in California, you used to live in California.
I did,
we talk now more than I think we did then. So
maybe we had some many late nights there during the.
Yes, we did in the DVD QC days.
Yes,
we used to watch DVDs into the wee hours of the morning
and write reports. You and I were of the few that could write the official reports and send them to clients.
The hours in Excel spreadsheets. It's joy. It's joyful. That's what you want to do. You get out of film school, you go and I want to do spreadsheets for DVDs of movies that I wouldn't really want to watch. But hey, it's paying me. It's okay. It was good.
It sounds cool to anyone not doing the job. No, there's fun times, but there are.
It was an amazing job especially for people who are into film, and for those out there who are starting out or whatever, coming out of film school or wanting to get into film. Those jobs still exist at some level. And if you can find them, snag them. That's not a bad way to spend 8 hours.
And great networking, too, because everying that's in there is usually someone in the same spot you are.
Well, and in our
or
group,
further along.
We had an amazing group because we had, you and I, of course, were amazing.
Yep.
But we
that's
also had...
That's a top.
The top one. We also had Moranzio Vance, who's a comedian, and he and I have done shows together now as comics. And then we also had Scott Mendelson. Scott Mendelson, who's now at Forbes and a big critic.
Yeah,
who will not review my movie. He will not review my movie. He's a conflict of interest or something, but he won't review it. It's okay. I'm not bitter.
No, not at all. Oh yeah, we also had short stints. People like the guy who played one of the not flea nihilist in Big Lebowski worked for a couple weeks there.
I don't know if I realized that or not.
Yeah, there's some different people that would show up here and there. There's a guy, when it merged with Testronic Labs, his name was CJ. He ended up getting a pilot that got turned into this Harper's Island series. And,
nice. Yeah.
He was the only person from the pilot they kept. They recast the whole thing and kept him.
Oh, that's
and he was in Transformers too. We had tons of different people that worked there. It was
John Rocha, who's a podcaster in his own right.
Yeah, Johnny. He's been on this show. Just lots of people, lots of fun. Everybody just talking about movies all day, watching movies all day, complaining about movies all day, knowing stuff about players.
I don't need to see Madagascar again. I saw that a lot.
That was a high pressure title when it came out. There'd always be the ones too that would come back around. Like there was one of the Harry Potters that I was like, oh my gosh. And then I watched it in Dutch and I was like, this is kind of interesting this way. So
that's the thing is movies do come back around. I remember I got my start doing the DVD QC thing when I was in film school at SC. What was one of the first movies that we worked on there in the DVD center, which we were on the Sony lot, which was neat being on the Sony lot. We had a limited number of movies that we were putting out first. We had 7 titles that Sony put out in the first 8 months or so. And they were like Jumanji, People versus Larry Flint, Jerry Maguire, A League of Their Own. And, Jumanji, on the first few viewings, is a lot of fun. And then you start getting into German and the French and then the thing, and then you're like, and then eventually it comes back around. And I will say that any movie, if you have to watch it, if you're an American, you watch the movie in the French dub, suddenly, no matter what it is, it's elevated to art. Watch Biodome in French. That is art.
Yes, definitely. I always like when Star Wars comes out, I change the dub on Yoda to see how they imitate the Frank Oz. It's always way off, different. Like, it's always an interesting one to do. Switch the dub on Yoda.
I got to do that. I haven't done that. That's funny.
There's one language that's like, I'm like, that's not Yoda. That's not fun. That is this creepy ass. No. Going back to the beginnings, you grew up in Brazil, am I right?
That's correct. Well, the first about 7-8 years of my life, yeah. I grew up in the Amazon jungle in Brazil. Parents were missionaries. I do the quotes sometimes for that because found out years later my dad was also doing other things that was I guess we were involved in down there. Or at least that's what I understand. And so yeah, it was my childhood was part Mosquito Coast, part Tom Clancy, with a dash of Indiana.
Oh, that's right.
Jones.
Yes.
Yeah, my dad turned out to be apparently working for the State Department, as you do in the late 70s, early 80s. Mm-hmm. And that, I found that out years later, though. I didn't know it at the time. At the time, I just thought it was normal, living in a jungle. We lived in a town called Arunapé, which is about 1,000 miles away from any major city. And the only way we could get there was either on the river or by small plane into what I believe at the time was kind of like a dirt landing strip situation. That's now a proper small airport, but it was 1,000 miles from any kind of civilization on the western side near the Chile border. And it was neat. It was a mango farm I lived on a mango farm, and we used to take trips up and down the Amazon River, and it was wonderful. It certainly fueled my creativity.
Yeah, definitely.
There's nothing else to do because there were no other kids my age. It was me and my dog Snoopy.
Oh.
And he was a big coward. And then my imagination. That was it for a number of years.
So does anyone ever comment on your imagination? Like, he didn't grow up like all of us. Like, what has anyone picked up on any thing Here's the thing is that my background at in Brazil is what got me into film school. It was you have to write an essay to get into SC as well as a bunch of other stuff you submit. And I wrote an essay about the last couple of years we lived in a colonial town on the east side of Brazil called Santarém. And I wrote this little thing about this thing that happened to me when I was about 6 or 7, I guess it was, probably 7, where my mom and I had walked to the store. And as we were walking back, it was a really hot day, which it often is on the equator. She had gotten me an ice cream cone and I tripped and it fell and I was sad about it. So I wrote I dropped my ice cream cone essay, but it happened to be in Brazil. And I guess that impressed people enough to get me into the film school. But once I got into film school, I got to be honest, when I was in the late teens, early 20s, you tell people your background, they get kind of at a certain point, they roll their eyes and like, whatever, I don't care. David's from Brazil. Who cares? And it's like, oh, that story again. And, and sometimes they don't believe it, because it doesn't seem plausible to some people, I think. But it was certainly a real thing that happened and got me into film school. I mean, in my senior film at SC was about it. I did a fictional version of Tom Sawyer Huck Finn story of a missionary boy, and he has a best friend who's an Amazonian kid, and then the Amazonians want the missionaries out, and a little sort of anti-colonialism story, questioning religion and all this stuff. And so that was my senior film at SC. By the way, somebody pull that off. I'm trying to think of where.
I love. And it looks pretty decent too. Yeah. George Foyt was my DP on it, and he's gone off to do some fun things. We were very clever. Like my thing, I always tell people, I teach a production class sometimes. And what I always tell people is, filmmaking is an illusion. All that matters is what's happening in the frame. Everything outside of the frame doesn't matter.
Right.
You don't want it to be on fire. That would be bad because you have to stand outside of the frame when you're directing. But what's in the side of the frame matters. And and that was the thing I think that we pulled off the best on that. It was called Homeland Homestead was the name of the movie. And so we shot in all kinds of places. We shot in Griffith Park, in this area that Jurassic Park would end up being shot at as well. In fact, I believe when we were shooting, Jurassic Park was shooting. And we had to I think if I remember correctly, they were just there or were just about to be there when we shot. And then we shot at the Los Angeles Arboretum, where the Fantasy Island used to be shot. And there's actually an exterior Adobe type, looks like a mission. And we put a cross on the top of it and transformed it a little bit. But then there's all this, little bit of jungle here and there. So we just be very careful with our angles. There's a waterfall that we had our actor walk across that's there. And then we shot some stuff at SC, and we're just very clever. Like we had this one part where the boys run out of the forest and stop, and they have a quick bit of dialogue before running off. And it was a pickup shot that, was a shot that we had pushed. And we shot it in this overgrowth area behind one of the buildings at USC. that had just some big vegetation, and about a week later they had trimmed the vegetation, and you'd see what was really behind us, which was the Shrine Auditorium.
Oh,
I love being clever like that.
oh yeah,
The thing about filmmaking, it blows me away. But that film, it was funny. Here's a funny anecdote. One of my classmates was Susan Levine, who's now Susan Downey,
okay,
married to Robert Downey Jr. And she did not like my movie. She did not like Homeland Homestead. She thought that, we had made this Huck Finn, Tom story, Sawyer type story, but I ended up casting people who were in their teens. I wanted to cast like 12, 11, a little bit younger, but we just couldn't find actors to work on a student film that were that young. And the couple that did audition were clearly had crazy parents. So that I was like, I'm not putting up with that one. That stage mom, that would be horrible. And so we cast slightly older teenage boys. And she had this comment. We were in dailies, and she's like, David, do you realize that your film has homoerotic undertones? I was like, no, it doesn't. I was like, no, they're friends. It's not in the script. You see, it's not in the script. They're not having a relationship. They're just, and why erotic? And they're minors, by the way. Where's your mind going there? And I thought it was crazy because, like, in Brazil, when I lived down there, you don't wear a lot. You also leave your shirt off because it's the equator and it's hot.
Okay.
So I had one of the actors would have his shirt off once in a while, and she just, I guess, read into it, but she was not a fan. She was not a fan of Homeland Homestead.
It's not on Rotten Tomatoes, so she can't go and
no.
click on.
But what's funny is, speaking of Rotten Tomatoes or review sites anyway, we when Boris and the Bomb was released last year, we got reviewed on Film Threat, and by the same reviewer who had reviewed Doolittle. And we scored significantly higher than Doolittle. So I feel a little sense of vindication because that was her film.
Take that.
So I'm like, hey, my little micro budget, action adventure film, beat her huge CGI thing where apparently a dragon has an accordion taken out of its butt or something.
Take your word for it. I haven't seen the movie.
I haven't seen it either, but I hear that's part of it. Apparently it's a big part of it.
If you say so, it'll be so. So the people listening to my show who haven't seen Doolittle, that happened. Totally.
I'm curious
100%.
to watch it just for that.
Okay. We'll have to check it out, I guess. Speaking of, you also around your USC days when you got the part of Torch on Saved by the Bell, the new class?
That's right. Yeah, it was my summer job for 3 years. I got cast. It was basically an extra, but I got bumped up to occasionally getting to speak and have a character and get to do a lot of gags. And I was in on a lot of the gags on the show. But it was I got cast in '95, at the end of my freshman year at USC, and so my first 3 years at SC, or I guess my second 3 years, were always a little complicated because I'd shot on the show from April until about September. And then I would leave the show and go back to school. And that was hard too, because 1 year they actually offered me a job as a PA. And they said, you want to become a PA? And I could have gone into the writing side of things and probably stayed and eventually become a staff writer. But I had just gotten into the film school, and I was like, no, I got to go pursue this thing and go to film school. But I was on the show for 3 seasons. It was amazing. It was a wonderful summer job. We shot at the NBC studios here in Burbank.
They shoot the whole season in the summer, or just like a good chunk of it?
No, we show because we had minors. Our main cast with my seasons, we had a different cast a lot because it was the new class and they often switched out. But we had Richard Lee Jackson, brothers Jonathan Jackson, and Sarah Lancaster, and who else? Samantha Esteban, and all of them. They were all under 18. They were anywhere from Sarah was 14 when she joined the show, and then Richard Lee was 17. So a lot of them were minors, and which meant that it was easier to shoot during the summer because they didn't have school and they could work a little bit longer.
Gotcha.
So we would start shooting in April, and then we would shoot. They would actually shoot all the way through December, but I would leave the show in August because of my scheduling commitments. So I would leave, and they'd have me back, and they were nice about it. But the show shot the high school stuff first. So anytime you watched the new class, and I'm assuming this is the same way for the original series too, we were on longer, by the way.
Yeah, it did. That show did run longer than the original series proper.
Every year after I was off, I was like, we're still on? Okay, great. I was surprised. I stopped watching it after I wasn't on it. But we would shoot the high school stuff first. And then in August, we would often flip the set and do a special episode. So the mall episodes, or the kids would go off on a cruise, and they'd have a semester at sea. Those type of episodes were done second. So they would shoot the high school first, and then the second, which is trippy, by the way, because I've been watching the new series and seeing the set for Bell reimagined with the new series, where you see, the whole school. It's a more practical location than the art stage. We were a sitcom, so we were a 4 or 5 camera operation, and had an audience of 14-year-old kids watching us, which was awesome. Doing live sitcom is wonderful. It's so much fun, but seeing the new series, like suddenly there's something at the other end of the hallway. Like they have the same basic staircase that I spent hours coming down and doing things at and being in, and then seeing it now that's still there. They've replicated it, but then they turn the camera around and there's a whole other hallway. And I was like, I didn't even think. I thought that, in my mind, it ended.
Yeah. It's just this one little commons with the lockers, the stairs. The stairs went up, but we don't know where to. We don't know where to. You
want to hear a gross thing that was up those stairs? Because we had the same set from the original series.
Right.
Like our Max was the original series Max, and our high school was the original series high school. Behind, so when we're up in that top of the steps before we come in, there's it's a flat. And at the back of the flat is the gum that the actors were chewing before they went on stage, and they would take the gum out. And it was, Tiffany Amber Thiesen's and Mark Paul Gosselaar's and Dusty's and everybody, whoever was chewing it, and they would autograph it. And then, of course, they wouldn't always autograph it. It was disgusting. It was gross. Oh, it's not the best.
There's a wall in Seattle that's like that with all just gum and stuff, and they I think they clean it once a year, and then people start it again.
It's so gross. It's so gross. But it's fun seeing the Max now, because that was my haunt. I took it over for a couple seasons.
And they didn't make you do magic tricks?
No, they didn't have any of that part of the show, which was good, because I was an okay actor, not great, and I did not know magic. I knew how to deliver fake burgers and fries. Actually, the burgers usually were real for the cast, just very cold, because they were made in the morning. But yeah, it was great. It was a great summer job for 3 years, and I'm very very happy to have been part of it.
I remember when you told me that first. I was like, "That's really cool." People work like, "What?" I'm like, "No, that's a better gig than most of you have had." That you tell me, like,
it didn't pay well. We were an after show, but it was it was sort of my I've had multiple film schools. Like there's the USC Film School, and then I consider Bell to be sort of an extension of that, because I would hang out at the in the booth and watch Don Barnhart, the director, work. And Don would go on to become a little bit of a mentor of mine, over the years before he passed. He died about 3 years ago, I think. But he had done Mork and Mindy. He had done Benson.
Oh, wow.
He had done variety shows with like the Rat Pack. He had this amazing career. And then he did everything, every Saved by the Bell, from Good Morning Miss Bliss all the way to the new class. That's Don Barnhart directing every episode until he started doing other things, because Peter got a little greedy and bought a whole bunch of shows. And suddenly Don had to go direct California Dreams and Malibu, California, and City Guys and all these other shows that were on at the same time.
Saved by the Bell new class is much cooler than California Dreams, because you at least have the title of Saved by the Bell in there, and people are like, "Oh, I know that."
Well, we had Dreams. Dustin and Dennis,
Yeah,
Dennis
you had original cast members,
who played Mr. Belding. It became a friend, and I love him dearly. And Dusty, and watching the two of them work, Screech and Belding, it's broad comedy, it's silly, it's for kids, but man, they put everything in it. They committed to it, and watching people who are, in my opinion anyway, comic geniuses of sorts, certainly physical comedic genius. There's not that many people who do physical comedy the way they had to do it. And especially watching Dusty, like, he's sharp, and he knew how to, they turned his character into very much a caricature over the years, and he embraced it. He didn't overly fight it. He's a good actor, and he's got a pretty big range. But he would, show up and pull the face and do the pratfall. And at one point, God, they had Dustin and Dennis in suits of armor jousting for one episode, and Dennis was in his early 50s, I think, when I was on the show. And then they also put them, one of the episodes of the Max that was fun, is they put both of them, I think it was both of them, in a giant milkshake container and poured a milkshake on top of them and made them as a giant. It was like some gag for the school radio station. It wasn't an actual milkshake. It was actually this is kind of grosser. It was mashed potatoes, instant mashed potatoes that they made a giant batch of that they poured on top of them.
Okay.
So they weren't freezing, but but that's a lot of commitment to comedy there. And so
Right.
it's fun to watch.
Yeah. I remember Dennis used to be a karaoke regular at was Dimples back in
Dimples here in
Burbank.
Burbank.
Yeah, I used to see him there a lot. Whenever I go in, I wasn't like there regularly, but he'd be in there like quite frequently every time I'd show up in there. So
He's a wonderful guy. I owe my career to him. My first day as Torch, where I got bumped up, I had joined the show April of '95, and I was basically just a high schooler on the series. And then a few weeks in, they asked me to audition for the redheaded waiter, and I went to the audition, and it was only me and one other guy who looked like he was about 30 something. And I thought, well, I might be getting this. This might be my part. This might be for me. And I was like, oh shit, I better not fuck this up. And I went in. It was my first real professional audition, and I went in and auditioned for Robin Lippin. Didn't know what I was doing. I was nervous, and it's a tiny office, and her desk took the whole thing. It was ridiculously comedic, the room. This little lady and this huge desk. And then I got the part, and then it came time to tape. We rehearsed on Thursdays, then we shot on Fridays. And the Thursday rehearsal went okay, but I was nervous about getting to set the next day, and I didn't have a car. So I was using my girlfriend's car at the time, my college girlfriend. And I stayed over at her apartment. And she had one of these alarm clocks where there's like a million buttons on it, and little tiny switches. And I hit the wrong button, and I overslept. And I woke up. I was supposed to be, my call time was like 8, and I woke up at 8:20. And I called into the stage, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm late. I'll be right there. And I was living at USC, so I had to drive up the freeway. But luckily, on Friday mornings, it's actually easy to get to Burbank from SC. The traffic's in going the other direction. So I got there in 20 minutes and got on the stage. And Karen, the AD, pulls me. I just remembered it was Karen. Oh my God. Sorry, we talk on Facebook now. We're connected. Karen pulled me aside and said, they were going to fire you, but Dennis vouched for you. Dennis Haskins said, if David's late, it has to be for a reason. I'm sure he'll be here. And so I owe Dennis Haskins my entire career for that, because he had faith in me, and that allowed Don.
Where did it come from? Did you guys talk and stuff like right beforehand, or just he's just like, here's a young guy, let's not?
I mean, there's a little bit of that. I mean, when you're on the show, there was about 10 of us that were regular background performers, and there's a couple of us that were kind of given sometimes a little bit more leadership responsibility and training new people coming on. And we would get opening crosses, and so we'd get a little bit more, attention than people coming in and cycling. And I'd been there for 6 weeks, and when you're waiting to go on, you're talking to each other. You become friends. And he just, I don't know, for whatever reason, didn't think I was a complete fuck up. So that was nice. So it was just, he vouched for me. It was just, he also looked out for people. It was a pretty tight group, and I remember I'd have to be picked up because I didn't have a car. And I would hang out. One of the great things is we shot at NBC. I used to hang out behind the backstage of the Tonight Show because there was a break room right behind the door that leads to the stage. So I would, just happen to have to hang out there all the time so I can watch celebrities and Jay Leno walk around and stuff. And there was a phone, a pay phone there that I would use. I had no cell phone. This is pre-cell phone.
Right.
So I would call my ride.
You had the Zach Morris phone, of course.
Right, of course. Yes, it was, of course, the Zach Morris phone. And so I would call for my ride, and I'd wait there, and I'd, stargaze. I almost got hit by Mel Gibson one day. He was driving his truck, and he wasn't looking. But I would often be standing outside after I called my ride, waiting for my ride. And one day Dennis pulls up. He's leaving, and he's, offered, hey, do you need a ride? And are you okay? Are you all right? And he cared about people. And and that was the spirit of a lot of the folks. Dusty just passed, and that was hard, to see happen, and because of the show and some of the things that have happened over the years, there's this mistaken idea of who people are on these shows. And it's never quite what the tabloids or what the media sees. And my experience with all of them was that it's a very tight-knit group, and we all cared about each other, and there were certain moments afterwards that where like Dusty was trying to reinvent himself and try to shake off the Screech persona, so we decided to start acting a little differently. But that's not really Dusty. Dusty's a nice, sweet human being who just honestly wants to be wants friends. And that's what I noticed, when I knew him, was that, that was very much true about him is, he was one of the first people to introduce himself to us, and would hang out and talk, and was just a nice person who, took his job very seriously. And but also was, growing up in the public eye, and I saw that Lifetime movie they did, and it was accurate from my experience.
Huh.
But a lot of the stuff that happened in it, at least from what I could tell anyway, was stuff that I know that happened on the new class. Like, there was some schmuck who took advantage of Dustin, and became a friend of his, but then Dustin signed for a car for him and all this stuff. He took real advantage of Dustin, and that guy's mentioned in that movie. His name was changed, but it was very much stuff that had happened. So, it's complicated, but at the end of the day, that group is pretty tight. We're all still, some of us at least are still friends. I happen to end up getting to know some of the people from the original series just by happenstance, because it's, not
Right.
everybody gets to say that they went to Bayside High.
Yeah.
And graduate from Bayside. Go Tigers.
Bayside alumni. Moving on real quick from Saved by the Bell, which I want to check in real quick. Well, last time we talked, you were on my old show. I was on your show, and then before that, you were on my show, old show. But we have a great conversation about Boris and the Bomb, which you can go back to Cult Cinema Cavalcade and listen to that. It was like 35 minutes about it, but I just like to check in with Boris and the Bomb and see what it's. I know it's on Tubi now.
It's on Tubi TV, and we're also now on IMDb TV, which is a brand new thing that Amazon has started doing. And what's kind of neat about it is it's a curated content on IMDb TV. So we had to be picked out of all the content they could have picked. They did choose us as one of their films. And that's nice. So you can watch it now on IMDb TV. It's out there. And I think we'll be on more streaming services as the year progresses, as our distributor, Indie Rights Movies, is putting us out there and helping get the word out about Boris and the Bomb. But it's doing great. And we're very excited. Our lead actor, Jonathan McCarthy, just shot a couple of days on The Morning Show, season 2. One of our actresses, Leela Ladner, she's a Disney Junior star, and she's their first Indian princess. Mira, Royal Detective. Royal Detective. Then she's Mira. And then Parissa Fakri is on SEAL Team and is doing great. And Molly Hagan, who's in our film, is currently in Walker, Texas Ranger. So the cast is doing great and getting out there and having a good career wave happening, which is also good for Boris and the Bomb. So it's going good.
Awesome. And now you're on a new part. Now you're documentarian currently.
Yeah.
Right? That's where you're playing your hands in with Flappers Comedy Club. You're doing Unflappable, the chronicling the history of Flappers.
Yeah, chronicling the history and predominantly focused on this last year in the pandemic, because I'm a stand-up comic and Flappers is my home club, which is how that happened. And we have been talking with Flappers for a while about doing a narrative web series about just, the behind the scenes of a comedy club. And there's a lot of crazy stories that the owners had shared with us. And so we were actually talking actively with them about that and working towards it. And then the shutdown happened. And I was in the week the shutdown happened, not only were we talking about doing the narrative series, but I was supposed to shoot one of the owners, his name's Dave Reinitz. I was supposed to shoot his comedy special. I was supposed to direct it for him and shoot it. But the shutdown happened before that before we could shoot. That was on, it was going to be March 20th, and Flappers closed on March 16th.
Right. Yeah,
and their last live show is technically March 14th, that Dana Gould headlined. So about a month into it, Josh Snyder and I, he's the booker there and one of the producers of the doc and also of content at Flappers, we're talking, and we had been talking about, I'd wanted to do a doc for a while. I mean, I did CNN stuff for a couple of years back in 2008, 2009, and had covered protests and stuff. And I love documentary filmmaking.
Good thing we don't have those anymore, right?
Yeah, there's no protest. The world's solved. We're post everything.
Equality's here. Everything.
Yeah, it's
great.
fine. There's no problems at all. So I I'd done short subject documentaries. This is my first feature doc. And so I just started following them and recording video of them reinventing themselves. I mean, they went from being a brick and mortar comedy club to within a week, they went online with Zoom comedy. They were the first big club to do that. They were only the third, I think, set of comedians to do it. And the other two comedians were our Flappers regulars, Maria Bamford and Jackie Cation. Then they have an online school it was an online before, but now it's online, called Flappers University, FU, and I teach a production course there. And then that moved online, and then they have a restaurant, a pretty big restaurant They have 3 performance spaces, so it's a big space. And that place was shut down. And in order to try to keep the lights on and going, they've done everything from they did groceries for the first month of the pandemic. People couldn't find toilet paper. They had toilet paper, so people bought toilet paper from them. I know I did. The big industrial size toilet papers too. And, for big butts, for big butts.
That cannot lie. Yes.
They can't lie. And then they did some takeout and food delivery for a little bit. And then they what really saved them, though, is they started feeding seniors in Burbank through a program called Great Plates, and funded also by the state of California and FEMA. And it feeds seniors, and they feed 50 to 60 seniors in Burbank 3 meals a day. And 7 days a week. And over the course of the year, one of those seniors ended up becoming my mom, because we moved her out from Michigan the week of the shutdown. That week, I had to move my mom out. Things, she needed some help and needed some extra care. And so we moved her out here down the street from where I live. When Flappers got the green light to do the food delivery, after about a couple of months, my mom signed up for it. So now, it's been a wonderful thing, that they were able to do for the community. And it's helped them keep the lights on. So, the documentary follows that entire journey of them trying to keep their business from going under. The owner of Flappers, Barbara Holiday, there's Barbara Holiday and Dave Reinens, they co-own it. Barb's house is collateral for the club because they got an economic development loan from the city of Burbank. And so, the stakes are pretty high for them. Like if it doesn't work out, they not only lose their club, but she loses her house. So the documentary really is about that journey. As well as, the state of comedy throughout the, COVID shutdown.
Yeah.
And we've interviewed now over 40 comedians as part of the documentary. We're considering turning it into a series. We may still do that if there's interest in it. But right now we're just focusing on getting the feature done. And hopefully they'll get to reopen at some point, but with the way this virus is going, who knows? Hopefully, knock on wood, they're able to reopen. And when they do, it'll be a good thing for the community again, and also for comedians who are just dying to get on stage.
Right.
Well, they don't die to go on stage. Nobody wants to die to go on stage.
But I have to say that Flappers Facebook page is it's pretty exciting for, a comedy club that can't be open and stuff. There's a lot of programming going on that.
Well,
on a regularly scheduled basis. It's pretty.
They still do 7 nights of comedy.
Yeah.
And they're the only club doing it. I mean, the Comedy Store shut down and Laugh Factory shut down. Those other clubs started doing some things outdoors occasionally. Flappers did a drive-in comedy called Park and Laugh, where they put up a stage and had big comedians, come in and perform. Everyone from Jimmy Dore to, let's see who else. Bill hasn't done it. Bill Burr hasn't performed yet at the drive-in, but there's a ton of amazing people, and they were thriving before the shutdown. Like 2019 was their biggest year, and they were starting to do really well. I mean, they're the regulars that performed there in terms of big names. Became a club that, a lot of comedians would work out at while they were prepping for their special. So Whitney Cummings is a regular at Flappers and, did shows almost nightly there, where she was working on her material for her next special. And same with Bill Burr. Jeff Garland had a weekly show there on Sunday nights, and Dana Carvey would drop in. Jerry Seinfeld dropped in when he was working on his last special and took over the club for a night, so they were thriving and doing great. And, so that it's, hopefully they're able to, to pull out of it. But the doc is about them. And then throughout the doc, you get to learn a little bit about how Flappers came to be and who these really interesting and positive people are. They're inspiring. They don't give up. And that's something that, certainly, I'll be honest, having the doc to work on this past year has kept me going and allowed me to feel some sliver of hope throughout all this. Because, having Boris and the Bomb released in January, February of 2020 and the shutdown happened, that screwed up our entire plan for how the film was going to be received. And even though people are streaming, it still became hard to get the word out and promote it. We were going to do conventions. And
it felt like it was just taking off and then whoosh.
Yeah. And we had another movie that we were starting to work on and prep and write called One Good Christmas, a Christmas movie. And we've had to put all of that kind of on simmer, and so the doc really has been the thing that has kept me going, for the last year. And it's been, if you're having a hard day, there's nothing better than interviewing a comedian.
Sure.
And listening to them, and some of them have had amazing stories. Kristen Keyes was on a Princess cruise ship performing when the shutdown happened. And she actually got shut down before the shutdown because they were one of the boats that, got flagged for having an outbreak. And then Hal Sparks is a big part of the doc. And Hal was in China the months leading up to the shutdown because he was shooting a game show that he hosts there. And he was in and out of China for several months for the 5-6 months. So some of them have some amazing stories, about how they've survived the shutdown.
Yeah.
And what they've gone through to just sort of, keep afloat and deal with it too. It's been a crazy year. It's been a nutty year. We did one of the other things that I'd be remiss if I didn't mention is we did this show called Wicked Widgets, which we started shooting third week of the shutdown because my wife and I's reaction to trauma and stress is usually to do a web series.
There you go. Yes.
When we did Ann Boris, the series that Boris and the Bomb is based on, it was during the 2008 financial crisis, and we both had gotten laid off. And so we made that series. We did 3 seasons of it back to back in 2009. And then when this crisis happened, it made sense for us to do the same thing.
Right.
But we did a Zoom sitcom called Wicked Widgets about a magical IT company that accidentally deletes the internet in the middle of the pandemic. And their Zoom-like stream is the last stream, and they have to keep it going. Otherwise, the internet goes away forever. And then there's a lot of commentary about what we were all going through at the time, and a lot of silliness, a lot of very, very big silliness happening on Wicked Widgets. We were just having fun. But we just re-released the first season. We did 2 seasons of it. We did 7 episodes. We did 4 episodes, and then we did 3 more, and we did it all live. We treated it like a sitcom.
Okay.
We wrote on Mondays. We wrote on a Monday, Tuesday, and then we shot the show Sundays at 4:00. And we'd actually start shooting at 1. We'd shoot the show a couple times, once live on Facebook, once off of Facebook. And it was a blast. But we're re-releasing it with sort of finished effects and music.
Okay.
And editing.
Special edition.
Yeah, because it was like a live taping, and it was very raw.
Right.
So we've gone through and tightened it up and added because it's magical, and there's actual magical battles that happen in it as are crazy. We had Andy Forrest from Parks and Rec is in it.
Okay.
And, Anthony Q. Farrell, who's a showrunner with a couple BAFTAs under his belt for Secret Life of Boys. He was in it as a performer. He's a friend of ours, and a bunch of fun people from Boris and the Bomb are in it too. And it was between that and Unflappable, that's what kept us sane. Because it kept our mind off of the stress of the pandemic.
Of course, I mean you got to be like you can't just sit. I know there's people who are like, how dare you do or whatever. It's like I can't just sit and say this sucks all day long, or just be like you can't. It's just you can't do that. And I found things to do. I mean, you found things to do, and we made things happen. By the way, I was in a movie with Anthony Farrell.
Oh yeah,
Jeremy shot called Pool Party.
Oh okay.
I worked on that one a lot. I was like, I remember that guy that went on to work on The Office. I was like, who?
Yeah. He was a writer on The Office for a couple seasons at the end there. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Anthony,
acting. Yeah, he acted in that movie.
He's funny. He's so funny. He plays Lord Maximus in Wicked Widgets. He's an evil ancient sorcerer. He's very narcissistic and selfish and full of himself. Not at all based on anybody in real life that might have been a president of the United States at the time. And it was, and he was brilliant in it. He was so much fun. He committed fully for us. He's a good friend. I was on his series called Dwelling years ago. He did a web series, and he and I, it was his show, and he was in it. And I got to play a small part in that. So that's how we met, and we become friends. And since, and whenever I have an opportunity to work with him or some of those people that are in Wicked Widgets, I make an excuse to.
There you go. Yeah,
because it's fun, and he's so funny, and a good human being too. He's Canadian. You have to be a good human being.
It's too bad the movie I was in with him, he probably doesn't want to remember.
Oh, I don't.
I don't want to. But no, I really like your push. You're like, we got to make something work during this pandemic. It's very admirable. I've really enjoyed watching you. Just like, hey, we have to eat. We have to, feed our creativity. And I mean, I don't know how many people that listen to the show have seen what you've done, but it's impressive. And the way you push through while still recognizing there's a pandemic going on, and being
it's
mindful.
funny. is at the end of every day, my wife and I, we have a ritual where we sit and we talk about what happened that day with our kid and my mom and life. And, we'll go out in our backyard and sit in our hammocks and have a chat. And then at some point we'll inevitably remember, and there's also the pandemic going on. There's why do I feel anxious? Oh, that's right. There's a worldwide pandemic that had to wear a mask all day when I went to the grocery store and had a panic attack. But no, we keep busy. And it's either because we're, people who don't want to give up and we find ways of being creative under any circumstance, or it's, insanity. So it's one of the two, rather crazy or creative. But, I guess there's a fine line.
What do 16-year-olds care about?
When I was 16, all I cared about was smashing the patriarchy and burning it all down.
Oh my God.
Girls constitute a revolution.
Did you hear rankings are already starting? Emma Cunningham's just going to get ranked most bangable for the second year in a row. Kiera Pascal for best ass. Caitlin Price will take best rap. It's so nice not to be on anyone's radar. Totally.
You miss me?
Seriously?
We going?
Oh.
Can I help you?
I don't know, can you?
He's bothering you. He's harassing me. If you use that word, that means I have to do a bunch of stuff. You know that your school is weird, right?
Ignore Mitchell. If you keep your head down, we'll move on and bother somebody else.
I'm gonna keep my head up. High.
Why have we all accepted it? Like no one even blinks. Me and my friends protested everything.
We made a ton of mistakes, but you're glad you did it all, right? Of course. What are you gonna do? Nothing?
Whoever wrote Moxie is a badass.
You know what's messed up? I got sent home for wearing a tank top, meanwhile Jason is constantly shirtless.
People refuse to call me by my new name.
I don't like being voted best ass.
Says to draw hearts and stars on your hands to show support.
I would love to know who started Moxie.
And who will they go after next?
This seems like a women's issue, and I'm going to stay out of it.
If you're doing nothing, then you're part of the problem.
Noticing someone filming right now, and I have to go to the bathroom so bad.
I hate that we are shoved aside, dismissed. Nobody does anything. Nobody listens to us. Revolution, baby.
Moxie is directed by Amy Poehler, written by Tamara Chesna and Dylan Meyer, based on the novel by Jennifer Matthew. And it stars Hadley Robinson, Alicia Pascual-Pena, Lauren Tsai, Nico Hiraga, Sydney Park, Sabrina Haskett, Patrick Schwarzenegger, yes, he's his kid, Angelica Washington, Marcia Gay Harden, Clark Gregg, Ike Barinholtz, and Amy Poehler. Inspired by her mom's rebellious past and a confident new friend, a shy 16-year-old publishes an anonymous zine calling out sexism at her school. So, David, I always have people pick movies. You had a kind of a trio, but you were like, you know what? Damn it, we're doing Moxie. So why Moxie?
Why Moxie? Because, this past year, movies have been a sense of comfort for those of us who like movies in the pandemic, and most everybody's had to, be forced to stream stuff. But I'll be honest, modern, I host a show at Flappers called Talkin' Talkies, somewhere where we pick a movie and we talk about it. And a lot of the times it's 80s movies that are comforting. And because, there's a certain optimism, I guess, although I didn't think of it at the time, with 80s films, but modern films, not so much optimistic and not always well done. And when we watched Moxie, it just surprised me because it reminded me of everything I loved about a John Hughes movie, of the 80s, with this modern, edge to it. And also there's some social commentary in it. And whenever you can have a comedy that not only makes you feel good because the characters are so vibrant and the directing is so good, but there's also a message underneath that's empowering. I'm a father of a 7-year-old girl. And when I see a film like Moxie, which is very much about women's empowerment and fighting, I guess the patriarchy, but in this particular case, Patrick Schwarzenegger's patriarchy, where he plays this horrible, horrible guy, it reminds me that, I want my daughter to have, I want her to have Moxie. I want her to have the power to speak her own mind and to speak for herself and to be herself, and whoever that ends up being for her. So it's a film that spoke to me as a father and of a daughter, as well as a filmmaker. And Amy Poehler, I told my wife Jen, we're writing partners together and make all these projects together, and I told her, I was like, I would hope Amy stops acting and just focuses on directing, because it was so well done, so well executed, so well edited. You watch, indie films, especially coming of age stories, and there's sometimes something that doesn't quite click, or something that you go like, okay, it's a good movie, but it's lacking heart, or it's lacking, good cinematography, or it's lacking thoughtful directing. And this had all of those things. It's the film changes as you watch it. Her directing style and how Hadley, the main character's framed in the shot, and how she's lit is altered a little bit throughout the movie as she gains power and finds out who she really is. I love that. I love that there was thought that went into it, that it wasn't just, I'm going to execute a comedy with some teenagers and make a coming of age story, that it was actually an attempt to take you on a journey with this girl and be there with her. So many times in indie film, especially, and I guess it's kind of an indie film, although it's Netflix, if they're indie anymore, the camera often doesn't have a strong point of view.
Right. Yeah.
Usually the camera's just there capturing the scene. They have some blocking. The actors show up.
It comes with digital filmmaking a lot too. It's a lot easier to, like, it used to be hard as fuck to get a shot. Now they can just filter it in the post production. And
there's a laziness that's happened in some of indie film, and I don't know about a laziness. Just sometimes it's actors becoming directors, and they're not thinking visually. And what I love about Moxie is here you have this black belt comedic actress, Amy Poehler, who is just amazing at what she does on a regular basis. And she comes into it directing, I think it's her second feature. And she's now directing a documentary, by the way.
She has a TV movie under her belt too. So that could be three. I mean, this went to Netflix.
Yeah, that's right. And she's directed a bunch of, Parks and Rec and other series. But she comes into this and it's visual. The camera has a point of view. The way she opens it with this,
she could direct a horror movie.
It was amazing. Like that opening scene, I was like, oh my God, this is great. Yeah. I didn't expect it, where the character's running through the woods and, and she screams, you can't hear her voice. And it's just the camera's, following her, and it's tense. And you don't know where she's running. And you're like, did I pick the right movie? I thought this was Moxie. And then she wakes up from her dream, like, oh my God, you did it. I didn't see this coming. Usually you can see a dream sequence coming and you go like, I thought I had picked the wrong movie and I thought this was maybe a serial killer film or something. But then I'm like, oh no, this is Moxie. This is just where the character, and I was like, wow, that's so visual and so thoughtful. And then the whole film holds up as you're watching it. So as a filmmaker, it's just incredibly satisfying. And then as the story progresses, I mean, this is a story that's not told. Here we are, a couple guys talking about it, but
right. Yeah. Two white guys talking about.
But it's it's a story and a point of view that hasn't been told. I mean, most teen movies are basically movies about a guy stalking a girl, until she submits and finally gives in. You watch John Hughes movies and they're, I have them up on a pedestal and I love them still, but they're incredibly dated from, they're racist and sexist, and 9 times out of 10, the guy shows up unannounced at the end or wherever the girl is and holding up a boombox or sitting on a fancy car. And it's all about the girl going, oh, in this case, it wasn't about that.
No.
And in fact, the little bit of a love story that's in it, which is not much of one, is a guy we've never really seen before in a teen movie. This sensitive, guy who's, doesn't have an agenda, he's a feminist, and there's a part of the movie where they all draw on their hands stars and hearts as a way of a silent protest because of what happens to the main character, and he does that too. So even the male characters were presented differently in this. And then the female characters were honest and empowered and raw. There's a sequence at the end where they all start speaking their truth of what's happened to them, I'm a father of a daughter, and I'm also the son of as most of us are, of a woman, of a mom. And I have a sister and obviously a wife, and I'm surrounded by women in my life. And, and I know some of the horror stories that they've had to deal with, the sexism they've faced, the assault and all the things that the Moxie gets into. And seeing that story finally told, not just told, but also told in a way that's accessible, that's exciting, that's funny, as well as empowering.
Yeah.
You don't get that. Usually you get a little bit, you get a very straight drama sometimes, and there's still some guy stalking a girl at some point. In this case, there wasn't any of that. And instead you have this empowering movie that at the end of it, you kind of want to go get a megaphone and go out and march in the streets. You're ready to go out and change the world. And I think we need more movies like that. I think we need more movies that make you feel something, not just sad and depressed and angry, but something actionable, something where you can go like, no, I can take this and now I can go out of the theater or out of my home. And I've been changed a little bit through the experience of watching this movie.
Right. And, it doesn't hold its punch. There's movies that attempt this thing, but they're kind of careful with their punches. And also having Amy Poehler direct, she also can show you like these things don't have to be super serious. They have fun too. They're human beings. They laugh together. They have fun together. They plot together. They enjoy what they're doing. They're not just pissed and angry. They are pissed, but it's not just like played straight the whole time. And it also isn't afraid to show the flaws of our main character. She goes on a journey starting kind of flawed, becomes empowered, and takes that power to a different level of finding flaws that she needs to once again overcome in the end. It's quite
I love her journey, and it's not one that I've seen before, really. No. And what I like is there's a scene in the beginning where there's a new student who comes to the school, and she's really the catalyst of the film, and she gets mistreated by Patrick Schwarzenegger's character, where he's bullying her and being condescending, and it's pretty harsh how he is. And he spits in her soda and hands it back to her, and it's hard. And Hadley's character says, meets this girl on the stairwell, and they have a conversation, and she says, to this new student, that, oh, you need to keep your head down. That he's just the way he is, and she's making excuses for him. And the new student, and I forget her name, and you have it in front of you, says to her, I don't want to keep my head down. I want to keep my head up, if that's okay with you. And, and it's one of those moments where she realizes, oh, I'm part of the problem. I've been enabling this behavior at some level by my own silence and by this need to just, oh no, I'm not worthy. I can't speak up and speak my own truth. And then she changes throughout the film, and she becomes this incredible character that's leading a revolution at her school through the use of a zine, of an underground school newspaper, where she hides her identity. And it's wonderful to see a film that makes you feel not only just there's some hope that people maybe people will find, because we all struggle with that. We all want to kind of give in to the pressure of just going along with the flow, and we're in an era now
because it's easier, and
where we can't do that. You can't do that anymore. You have to start standing up for what you believe in, and you have to go march. You have to go tell people what you feel, and start taking your power, because you've earned it, and but by being a human being. And in women especially, the Me Too era, I think this movie is incredibly important, because I don't want my daughter to have to go through what my sister went through, or my mom went through, or other people, who have struggled or gone through the Me Too thing. I know people in Hollywood who have been Me Too, who've not been Me Too'd, but who have been, on the receiving end of male patriarchy, and in a very real kind of disturbing way. I could tell stories I could tell you, but I won't. Because I can't, because it's their story, not mine to tell. And it's important to have movies like this that can tell the younger generation, hey, you can do this. You can speak for yourself. And then also telling people of our generation, it's okay to allow this to happen. It's okay to start talking about this. You don't have to keep your head down. In fact, you should hold it up.
When I found, I hate to be, white guy going, well, I can relate to this movie as well, but there was some genuine authenticity to the portrayal of how this was handled at the school to me a lot, because I went to a Midwest school, middle high school in the 90s, and small school. And believe it or not, David, wanting to be a movie maker back then was not cool.
Right.
And I think it was in California. No, it wasn't seen as a real thing or a career. And so I got picked on and bullied just for my interests a lot. And because I wasn't with some cool clique kids, it was not the cool one. And there were many jack-offs in my grade, and people would try to have conversations with the people, the school teachers, officials, and they would say these things like exactly like the Marcia Gay Harden principal was. Like, I had flashbacks to my own encounters and things like that, and the way the teachers just kind of like, hey, let's get through the day, and then we're done, and then we just ignore. And like, there were kids that did like expulsionary offenses, like to me, to others, to other things, and they got to slide by because maybe their parents were on a booster club or something. Yeah. We had a kid, he was a complete piece of garbage, treating people like crap, harassment. He stole like the teacher's edition of a math book, one of our math books, and like threw it in the river and bragged about it. And then word got around, of course, to the principals and stuff. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Nothing. Like, he ruined, like, we couldn't take our tests. Like, we couldn't, cool, you got your math test going, but like, really, like, you're gone. But no, he was still there. I graduated with him. Like, just stuff like that all the time. Just physical bullying, mental bullying. Like, I dyed my hair blonde when I was like a sophomore, went on AOL Instant Messenger, some rando name that I didn't know, probably some kid from our school was like, hey, your hair looks like shit. Like, just saying mean things to me all the time. And I just couldn't go about my day, do my own thing. But because it was different, I'd be bullied. There were other kids probably got much worse than me. I probably got away with, I don't know, whatever at my school because I was, white male, whatever. But I even got, it was weird because there was one time, I hate to bring in my high school through all this, but like I got...
Hey, work through your trauma. Work through it.
Yeah. Me, this other guy, and these other two kids who were probably on the good kids squad, we got reported for like bullying someone or something, and we were all like, what did we're like, who is this? Like, we can't tell. And I'm like, no, we want to apologize, we feel really bad. Like, it was like the wrong kids to do that. I can't imagine the other end of it with those a-holes being like, I do nothing. But we're all like, can we write them a letter that you can give to them to say we apologize, we didn't mean whatever we had no idea who it was or what we did, but we like, can we apologize to this person somehow? And they're like, no, we just need to warn you. I'm like, we feel bad. We do not mean.
I had a similar experience. I got bullied quite a bit in elementary school and into high school. Oh, there's two fun stories, I guess, to tell. Like, when I was in elementary school, in junior high in Texas, so it was after Brazil, there's this one guy named Steven. He would harass me and stop me on the way to and from school. Mm-hmm. And we'd sit behind me in class. He would flick my ear the whole time, and I'd get wedgies and all the things that you get that screech what we had to go through on Saved by the Bell. That was happening to me in real life. And I remember one day I took revenge on him. He was walking down the aisle in my science class, and I was afraid to mention anything, and he wasn't getting in trouble for it. And he had been flicking me, and I just was upset and angry. And I sucker punched him as he walked past me.
Right.
In the gut. And for whatever reason, right then, of course, the teacher notices, and we both got sent to the principal's office. And I'm like, really? I'm standing up for myself, but okay. Yep. But he and I corroborated our stories on the way to the principal's office because neither of us wanted to get in trouble. Then we became friends after that, and he stopped bullying me. He also, I think, realized that I, was capable of possibly hitting back.
Right.
And then in high school, you had mentioned that being cool, being into film wasn't cool. I was in the theater department at Escondido High here in Southern California, where I finished school. And I was also a wrestler. And those two things were fodder for some people to really love to make fun of me. And as I would walk across the campus, and it was an outdoor California school, so you're outside as you're walking. And as I was walking almost every day, this one guy, his name was Chris, would scream at me from the quad, hey, Flamer. And they would call me Flamer, a homosexual slur, and just bully me and tease me and in front of everybody. And it was devastating. They would pick on this other kid, too, who had special needs and put signs on his back. And this kid, they never got in trouble. There was never anything. My only revenge with Chris, though, was he called me Flamer, and then a couple years later, I was on Saved by the Bell playing Torch. So I was like, well, I think that worked out for me. The red hair and
there you go
in the name, but yeah.
But no, there's always the people like, well, we become stronger for that, and like, no, you fucking don't. It doesn't have to be that way. Just because you or your parents went through things that way doesn't mean it has to be. Like, it's
yeah.
It
doesn't always make you. Sure, it makes you stronger, but it also gets expensive in therapy. But you don't want that experience for your kid.
But yeah, Moxie pushes that boundary and says no, it doesn't, and yeah, they really cleverly builds and builds. I do like, so it also plays on expectations with us having seen these high school movies, because we talked about character of Seth, the boyfriend character with the drawing that draws the stars and stuff. Did you kind of feel the first time you saw this movie like there's going to be something up with him, right?
Yes, no, I totally thought
up with him, and
I thought he was going to do something horrible, and then no, he's okay.
He's
not to give that away to people, but it's true. I felt that. I was like, oh no, they're totally setting him up. He's going to do something horrible. He's going to become like Patrick's, Schwarzenegger's character. Well, I'm sure he's a nice guy. I'm sure Patrick Schwarzenegger's a nice guy. But no, he ends up becoming just a version of a guy that exists, is real, but doesn't really ever get to have a movie made about them, and it doesn't ever get to be represented. And it was. I love that character because I also thought that something was going to happen. And then you've known.
It's too good to be true, that type thing.
He ends up being okay.
And it's actually better for Vivian's arc, too, because she doesn't need that as a springboard. She doesn't need that as a challenge. She's fighting herself through this movie and becoming herself.
Yeah.
And that would be a crutch. And then, or based upon the actions of a male, she became who she was. This allows her to just be herself. And that's...
Well, he's a passive character. In terms of like, it's not the love interest part of the story is just there because they're high school students, and that's a natural part of being that age. Like you said, it's not a catalyst for her. She's not trying to impress him or live up to some expectation he has of her.
Right.
She's trying to live up to the expectation of what she has for herself. And also I think for a little bit inspired by her mother. Amy Poehler's character, and obviously inspired very much by the women around her, that are that are part. In fact, one of the I remember now one of the other actresses in the film was a transgender actress who's also on Saved by the Bell, the new Saved by the Bell, and that's part of this group of women or teenage women who are protesting at the school and trying to change the school's behavior and get Marcia Gay Harden's character to take them seriously.
Is there anybody better at playing people you like to hate than Marcia Gay Harden? Like
she's so oh my gosh, good. She's so bad and good at the same time. She's so and it broke my heart. I'm like, no, why are you? I was like, no, you have to take her seriously. You have to listen. You have to. Oh no, she just doesn't want the paperwork.
Right.
And they have to ruffle the feathers of the rich family that I guess his character was part of. Because I remember, I guess his family was like some significant family in the community, which is always the case.
Yeah, it always is the case. On the other side, you have Ike Barinholtz's teacher that just doesn't like conflict when he's videotaped, and he's like, right now I don't want to talk.
I love his character because I thought that Amy Poehler's plays with the expectations of these characters, especially the male characters in the thing. In the film, there are like the boyfriend guy, the teacher. When you first meet him, you're like, oh, this is just another phoning it in, doesn't really want to be there, is maybe a slacker, isn't really. And then
he plays open mic on the weekends at the coffee shop.
Right, exactly. But he defies your expectations because by the end of the film, you realize, oh no, he really is on their side. He's just feeling constrained by the system.
He doesn't know how to do it.
Doesn't know how.
He's afraid to challenge.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to help. He doesn't know how to be an ally. He only knows how not to maybe get sued.
Right. He's too worried about pleasing everyone and not,
But when they walk out at one point, I love that scene, and it just redeems his character and makes you feel that there is hope, that it's not just, I think that's one of the things, when you look at, say, the Me Too, movement and where we are in not just Me Too, but also with, other, Black Lives Matter and people trying to fight for their rights right now, is you realize that there are allies out there for those communities, and they have to learn to speak up and do their part as well. but it's not an us versus them. It's more of a we.
Yeah.
It's more of people, finding a way of working together. And, just because it's, in this Moxie's case, it's about women empowerment and feminism, I guess, but also fighting just really horrible behavior by men. Even if you're a guy, in that particular case, the teacher, you can help too. You can be a part of it. You don't have to sit on the sidelines. And the people who are fighting it, they're not alone. They have allies that maybe aren't going through their experience that they're having, but they certainly sympathize with it and want to be a part of being part of the solution rather than the problem. And also, he's just very funny in the film and endearing as the film progresses, and you realize that he's not a complete schmuck.
Right.
A complete schmuck, which was refreshing. It's refreshing to see that.
No, I think this film's very almost educational in a way. It feels like a fun. You should all gather around, show people this, to show what you can do to invoke change, how other people are feeling about the other side of an issue, or maybe, oh man, I am a fucking asshole, that type of thing. Because I think the details are specific and modern, but the story itself, sadly timeless right now. And I think that's the power of a good movie. Mm-hmm. For me, I was giving notes to somebody recently, and I was mentioning that, with Boris and the bomb, a whole bunch of our own lives are in the movie, even though it's a silly caper. Is when you make a movie, you need to have a lot in it. You need to have, layers, to the story, and some of those layers need to be deeply personal to you as a filmmaker, mm-hmm. so that you have something that's being expressed through it. It doesn't mean you have to hit people on the head with it, but you want to have more than just the apparent story. You want to and that what that does is it allows you to have a movie that's not only entertaining and enjoyable, but then like with Moxie, you walk out of it going, "Hey, I'm ready to go hit the streets. Let's go let's go get some signs made and protest. Let's go change the world." And that's the best kind of movie, where you feel empowered as you walk out, rather than, lately, man, I got to be honest, like my wife and I, we're focused on making, for our narrative stuff, we're trying to do stuff that's positive, because there's just so many movies that are out are just depressing, mm-hmm. and they drag you down without giving you a path out of the depression. I had a writing teacher in school, and he said, you can take your audience into hell, but you can't leave them there. You have to let them have a way out by the end of the end credits. And so many movies, when they do speak to an issue, only speak to the issue, and they don't give you as an audience a way of being able to do something afterwards, or feeling empowered or good about your experience. You just leave depressed and confused. And you can't get a lot of change to happen when you're just depressed and confused. You got to be given something actionable, like with Moxie, is to stop being, find your voice, say what's happening, tell people, and own who you are, not who people think you should be. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
No, I just hope Amy Poehler keeps directing. It blew me away, and we need filmmakers like that. We need storytellers who are not just trying to get a point across, but also, knows how to do it. And there's not a lot of directors, in my opinion, that
you can tell the ones that are watching while they're on the shows and stuff like that are paying it, or checking their projects. Like, wait, who does she work with in film now? Like, who is she?
Well, it's just it's a visual medium, and in a director, you have to be able to tell whatever story you're telling, visually, as well as executing the script. And so many times, with a certain type of a genre, especially, people are executing the story. They're not expressing the story. They're not letting it filter through them. And she can do that. And that's, she's a comedic performer, so she understands rhythm and all of that, as well as being just amazingly visual and strong. Her camera has a point of view.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a strong point. And I think also it's got a great young cast in it as well, and especially the one you mentioned earlier, Lucy, played by Alicia Pascual-Pena, who's the spark plug for this whole thing. She's a star waiting to bust out. Like, she's got good presence and really commanding. It really helps with Vivian and her pair up, yin and yang, quite a bit well. It makes it really tick. Definitely check out mine. If you have a Netflix, you can watch it right now, or after we're done talking.
Yeah, right after we're done talking, go watch it. You'll feel better. you'll feel better about life at the end of it, after you realize some things that maybe you were ignoring. But at the end of it, you'll feel like you need to go out there and help change the world.
And if not, go look in the mirror for a bit and think about yourself.
Exactly.
If you don't feel that. What else? This is where we just kind of talk about anything we may have recently read, watched, listened to, wrote, produced, put out in the world, whatever you want to say. So, David, what else?
What else? What else? Well, watching movies is a big part of my life. I guess what else is, throughout the past pandemic, one of the things that I've gotten into again that has been kind of cool is video games, is video gaming. And throughout the pandemic, I've often found myself, you're stuck inside, you can't go anywhere, or if you go someplace, it's the same 3 places that you feel are quarantined and safe and, not filled with a deadly virus. And one of the things I've done over the last year is to escape that when I can't escape in something I'm writing or doing, is I played Red Dead Redemption 2, and I had to go out and spend some time in the prairie and just enjoy the great outdoors inside. And I like that. And what's awesome about that is, or about kind of using video games as an escape, is my daughter. So she's been homeschooled now for the year and stuck inside Zooming. And the only way she's been able to have play dates with her friends is by playing online computer games. And they'll play Roblox together and play all these different weird games that Roblox has, and it's that's fun. It's a nice way of escaping and feeling like you're going somewhere when you still haven't. You're just
right.
And I think that's the future. I think we're once they figure out the holodeck part of it, I think it's game over. I think it's pandemic all the time, and we'll just stay inside and be okay. But
did your daughter play Piggy on Roblox?
Yeah,
that's my kids are hooked on that.
It's disturbing. She showed it to me. I play with her sometimes, and it's disturbing when your daughter is Piggy and has been picked as Piggy, and suddenly stabs you in the neck with a knife. You're like, well, things have changed since I was a kid.
Family fun night, yeah.
We play Among Us too. We enjoy that. I enjoy that game quite a bit. But yeah, it's just disturbing. I did one of my favorite memories of recent time was I was playing Roblox with her, and there's this game called Brookhaven, which is I don't even know if there's a plot, but I think there is. But it's like a town set up, and what was Brookhaven? No, it was Adopt Me. It was Adopt Me was the name of the game.
My daughter, I think my daughter plays that one, yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a big, there's a town, and you trade stuff. And I wanted to treat her, so I bought her a car. I bought her a pink Jeep in this game. I think it cost me like, $2 in real life, which is still weird to spend money on a digital fake thing. And I get in the car, and I'm
That's
like,
a whole nother conversation.
I know, right? And I'm in the car with my daughter, and it's this nice pink Jeep that she picked out. And I'm treating her, and I'm feeling kind of like a cool dad. And, and I'm in the game, and I virtually look over to her, and I'm like, well, I'm riding in the car with my daughter, and she doesn't have a license yet. And of course, she immediately drives it off a bridge into the river. So that went well. I thought that went well. Luckily, there's no consequence in Roblox. So the car was salvageable, but clearly she wasn't quite ready to drive yet, even virtually. That's fun. That's been keeping us sane when other things have failed, is escaping into the digital world a little bit and having the sense of at least being able to go somewhere. I mean, my daughter, I've at least had to go to my mom's to take care of her. I go to Flappers to shoot. Go to the grocery store. My daughter's basically stuck here until this past week, where she finally went back to school for a couple days a week. And
there are other kids in the world, Dad.
It's amazing. It's amazing. But what else? Video games. What else? That's what I've been doing when I'm not making movies and silly TV shows and working on a doc is escaping into the digital world.
Awesome. All right, my what else is I started watching. I'm only 3 in. I know there's 4. It'll be five by the time this posts. But the Made for Love on HBO Max.
Okay.
It's got Kristen Milotti in it. She's like the centerpiece of it, and Ray Romano, Ione Skye, and Billy Magnuson. It's about this like inventor guy that lives in this dome thing.
Oh, okay.
It's not like it's like when you're in it, it feels like you're really outside in some sort of area or whatnot, and he's trying to make this perfect pairing couple thing, and like she like study every like she's his wife. Melody plays a wife. And like she gets this like chip in her that he can monitor everything of her, and like it's kind of parallels between her escaping from that dome and running off, and how it got to be or how it was when she was in the dome, and it's just kind of really interesting. Like he's trying to monitor everything when she was living in there, like testing everything to make them perfect pairing, like how well she does during like different sex things, and has to be like.
Sounds terrifying.
It is.
This sounds terrifying. This is not a comedy, is it? Right? This is like
it's more thriller sci-fi, but it has some comedic touches to it. But it's pretty interesting. It's a nice little show. I'm really a big fan of the HBO Max. That might be the one of the streaming services that speaks to me. Like I think their movie catalog's by far the best because it's got the Warner Brothers stuff, the Criterion things. So,
Friends, you know.
Yes, Friends, Doctor Who, modern Doctor Who.
Yeah, modern, 2005 and on, yeah.
Yeah, but it's, I mean, I've liked a lot of their shows, their movie. I mean, you get a lot of new movies from the theaters. I'm not ready to go back to the theaters yet.
Did you watch Justice League?
I did watch the Justice League. I did.
What'd you think of the first season? I mean,
I enjoy. I mean, I was in the cover of my head, like I kind of enjoyed it quite a bit. I thought it was a marked improvement, a nice thing. There's a lot of fat on it. I'm not gonna lie.
It's very slow fat though. It's very slow.
Oh, there's motion
fat.
If there's slow motion was taken out of the movie, it's probably a half hour shorter. Like if it was at regular speed,
half hour. No, I think it's an hour movie without the slow motion. That thing. Okay. Oh my God! It's funny. It's like, wow, I can see every frame of this moment, and then I go to the bathroom. I come back. I'm like, oh, it's still going. Flash is still. He's so fast. He's slow.
I'm not afraid. Like I like that they're not stuff like that. They're not going for like, oh, let's be Marvel. They kind of do their own thing, so you get different takes and stuff. Yeah, clearly. But I think Zack Snyder is like. I think he's definitely got talent. He's got vision. But I think he likes a lot of cool things, but I don't think he understands why he likes those cool things. You know, like I think he's like, oh, I'm gonna put it in black and white. I'm like, really? I don't think you understand why cool things that were in black and white were in black, or like I don't just.
It's not my choice of how I would go about telling those stories.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate the sort of some of the visual mastery he was doing.
Yeah.
My only criticisms of the movie, aside from the fact that it's incredibly slow and there's not much humor, and also Batman looks like he has to poo the whole time. He's just always so stiff. They need to build that suit better for these poor actors. It's ridiculous. I hated this, and I'm tired of this particular trope in modern superhero movies and big budget films is the bad CG villain. I thought Steppenwolf was better than the other version.
Oh yeah, no, he at least had a story. They had stakes. It felt like they were building. So like it really worked.
Like
it earned the finale. Like I was really into that finale, but
the CG I hate it on DC films. I don't know if it's just. I don't know what it is, but it's just they don't. And Marvel has some problems too, I think. But
WandaVision ended with two people throwing glow beams in space or in the sky at each other. Yeah, so
and I get sometimes I enjoy it, and it may be the right thing for that character. Those comic book superheroes, but you go like, oh look, it's another beam of light into the sky. Oh look, it's another giant CG villain that the heroes have to and it's just like, can you come up with something else?
Well, I mean, Wonder Woman 1984 kind of did, and people didn't like it. Like we're trying to verbally, her in the Max Lord finale was not punching it out. I'm just saying that one tried something else.
I like parts of that movie, but that part of it, I was like, you have Wonder Woman, she's sitting on the floor, and it's a weird dialogue scene, and he's standing in a Doctor Who set, and it felt like a different movie, suddenly at that point, rather than an active character saving the day with her whip and her things and all this. She's just going to it was like, oh, you have to love or whatever, and it felt kind of like a weak choice for that character in that moment.
Fair.
And I feel like they struggle in those third acts, especially DC, to get Yeah, you want. I
liked Shazam's. I did. That's probably my favorite of the DCs. They had a lot of humor to throw on. It took those tropes and made jokes of them. So I was very much into that. But yeah, it seems no matter you're DC or Marvel, it's like, well, call up the CG team for this final battle.
And then a giant beam of light into the sky at some point has to happen. It's got to be a giant beam of light into the sky. It's like it's either a villain coming to take over the Earth, or it's the best car sale ever in downtown LA or downtown Gotham.
Right.
Or a movie premiere in Gotham, I guess maybe it's what.
Yeah, it's not like the old days when Batman and the Joker would harass each other in a bell tower, and the world wasn't ending. So I like that stuff. But so a little bit of Justice League there. So that'll wrap us up for today. David, thank you for making your debut here. It's always a pleasure to catch up. And you also promoted this show when it dropped. So when it debuted, and like my launch day didn't really feel like a launch day till I went on Talking Talkies. It felt like, okay, we're here now, because you throw stuff out in the ether and it's like, and then like after I did your show, then the feedback started coming. It felt like real. So appreciate you.
Nice.
having me on.
Glad. Well, it was great to have you on. We love doing that show, and it's a lot of fun.
Yes, definitely. So where can people keep up with your happenings around the interwebs and socials?
You can find me on Twitter at DP Kronmiller or on Instagram. Also, Fish-Eyed Lindsay is our production company that we do Boris and the Bomb and Flappable and Wicked Widgets through. And we have a Facebook page you can follow and a YouTube channel that is a little anemic because we only recently started putting stuff on there. So if you get to that channel, please subscribe, although I think YouTube might be a dying art. And I'm all over Facebook, unfortunately, because it's the pandemic and that's the only way I get to see people.
Gotcha. All right. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. Written work on WhySoBlue.com. There's more from the Brandon Peters Show this week. But until then, always remember to keep the positivity in your online film chatter.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.
Well, Lucy, since you did the summer reading, I'm going to ask you the first question that we apparently have to ask about every work of art now, no matter what it's about or what time period it was created. How are women portrayed?
Well, I think the real question is, why are we still reading this book? It's written by some rich white guy, about some rich white guy. And I guess we're supposed to feel bad for him because he's obsessed with the only girl he can have. I mean, if the point is to learn about the American dream, we should be reading about immigrants or the working class or black mothers or at least someone who doesn't already have a mansion.